And last but not least, let's store this to a disk or even a USB drive. So to do that, we're going to hit the corner button up here to bring up our top menu. And this time we're going to go to the File menu. So the first thing I want to do is I want to store it to the local solid-state drive that sits inside of the processor. So you can see here under All External File, I have one category in here called Setup. Now we're going to store other things later, but for right now I just want to store the setup. Now how this menu works is, in the middle I've got a save and a load, and notice the direction that the arrows are going. The left-hand side is the register side. So in other words, register means what's in the switcher. On the right-hand side, it's saying local disk. Now I have a choice between local disk and removable disk. And when I'm in local disk here, I'm going to press this, and this is going to be a folder. So in fact, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to touch anywhere to get out of that. I'm going to go down to Configure, and I'm going to say New. And let's just call this Test. I'm going to enter, and it makes a new directory called Test. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to change my directory to be Test. I'm going to make sure that Setup is selected here, and I'm going to save. And when I press the Save arrow, notice the arrow direction, it's going to save from the register onto the local disk into the directory called Test. So I'm going to save that. And what it's doing now is saving all the setup stuff that I just put in flash memory, and I'm also putting it on the hard drive. Now, I can also put this on a removable device like a USB drive. So there's one step I have to do rather than just going and selecting removable disk. I need to go back to Engineering Setup momentarily, System, and all the way to the right here, Maintenance. I need to hit this button called Refresh. That tells it to go out and scan for a USB drive, and it found one right here, and it made it the primary. A really good tip is make sure that this button called Auto Detect is turned on. That way you don't have to refresh it, then go and touch the thing, and then set the primary. So let's go back using my internet browser buttons up here. I'm going to come back over here to my File menu, and this time I'm going to reselect Removable Disk, and now here's all the folders on my USB drive. And in this particular one, let's go ahead and just store it under the folder called Stacy. So again, I'm going to hit Save. Yes. So now I have 3 copies of my setup data. One that's in the flash memory, so the switcher boots that way every time. One on the internal solid-state drive, and one on my USB flash drive, which I can take with me for safekeeping, or even load that into another 3000 to copy my parameters. Now, if I want to load it, let me show you how that works. So loading is going to be the exact opposite of saving. Notice that we have a load arrow that goes from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. So again, let's assume that I've picked it out of here. I'm going to plug my removable disk in. I'm going to go to the directory of Stacy where I stored it. I'm going to select Setup, and I'm going to hit Load this time. So I'm going to hit Yes. So now it's going to load the setup off of my USB drive into the control panel. And just so that we dot all of our I's and cross our T's, let's do this from the local disk or the SSD drive. So again, I put it in the directory called Test, Setup still loaded, and I'm going to load it and say Yes. And now I'm going to show you one more little trick. The left-hand side doesn't have to just be the register. I can select Register, Local Disk, or Removable Disk. Let's say that I wanted to copy the setup that was on the internal SSD drive onto my USB. I can hit Removable Disk on this side, come and select the Stacy directory, and now notice that my Load and Save has now changed to Copy. So depending on which button I press is which direction it's going to copy. So I want to copy from the local disk to removable. I'm going to hit this Copy button and say Yes. And now it's done.